Thank you for visiting Utah Bankruptcy Questions and Answers. This is a video series presented by attorney Amy Butters to help people in Huntsville, Utah find answers to questions they have about bankruptcy. If you need to speak with a bankruptcy lawyer in Huntsville, call Amy at 801-513-DEBT. That's 801-513-3328.
Video number 7, what property can I keep if I file Chapter 7 bankruptcy or even Chapter 13 bankruptcy? Now, once you file bankruptcy, instantly everything that you own and everything that you owe, meaning all of your property and all of your debts, are put into, hypothetically, a box, and we call that box a bankruptcy estate. Now, when you have your bankruptcy estate, there's an individual named the trustee who is a lawyer who the bankruptcy court appoints to oversee your bankruptcy estate. Now, the bankruptcy trustee does not represent the creditors per se, but his role is to ensure that all creditors get paid or get treated equally. So he has the hat on his head that says, make sure everything's equal and fair when you disperse possible assets or monies to these creditors. Now, some people ask me, if I file Chapter 7 bankruptcy, am I going to lose everything? Are they going to come in and take my bed, take my house, take my car? And I tell them, no, you're not. You actually get to keep quite a bit of things. Now, in the bankruptcy court, we have what we call exemptions. An exemption is a legal term of art that details what property you get to keep and what property might be non-exempt, which the trustee has the right to sell and pay your creditors. Now, exemption can either be a federal exemption or a state exemption, and most of the state laws that pertain to bankruptcy deal with exemptions. And generally, every single state has a different exemption. And so, in your particular situation, you're going to have to consult with a local attorney to determine what property you own will be considered exempt. And that's really, really important when you're deciding which chapter to file. If you file Chapter 7, you want to make sure all of your property is exempt, so there's nothing that can be sold to pay your creditors. Because ideally, I want my clients to walk away from a Chapter 7 bankruptcy with their possessions and with a fresh start. But you need to discuss it with your local attorney to make sure that you qualify for those exemptions. Now, if you're doing a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, you still have to understand what property is going to be exempted, but it's a little bit different because in a Chapter 13, the trustee's not interested in selling your property. They're interested in getting you into a proper payment plan, which we discussed previously. So I urge you to make sure you understand what exemptions are available to you and then make the decision based on that information you receive. I'm going to give you some examples of exemptions. Now I'm going to discuss exemptions. One common example of an exemption is what we call the homestead exemption. Now, the homestead exemption protects equity in your primary residence, and some states like Florida and Texas have unlimited homestead protection, whereas other states such as Utah have limits. Utah, for example, only allows $20,000 per spouse in equity to be claimed as exempt under the homestead exemption. And just to reiterate, if it's exempt, that means the trustee cannot sell it to pay your creditors. So that means when you're done with your Chapter 7, you walk away with that amount of equity in your home still. Now, if you file bankruptcy in a state where you previously just moved to, for example, if you haven't lived in the state where you filed bankruptcy for at least 2 years, you're going to be required to use the exemptions from the state where you had just lived before the 2-year period. So, for example, if you moved to Utah from California a year ago and now want to file bankruptcy in Utah, Utah is going to require you to use California exemptions because you haven't been in Utah for 2 years. Now, some states allow you to use either the federal exemptions or the state exemptions where you live and allows the debtor or the client to choose which exemptions to use. But other states have opted out of the federal exemptions and require you to use the state exemptions. Now remember, even in states that have opted out of federal exemptions, special federal bankruptcy exemptions still apply to retirement funds, in pension plans, and in IRAs. Now again, when I use the word exemption, I'm talking about whether or not that property is going to be sold or not. And if the property is exempt, it will not be sold in a Chapter 7 trustee. Now here's a quick tip to remember. When you're listing your property that you own in your bankruptcy schedules, remember this. The value of your property is not what you paid for it when you bought it 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. It's the value of what it is right now. And the method that we use here in the bankruptcy court is what we call the garage sale or fire sale value. So if you bought a couch 2 months ago for $1,000 and then tomorrow put it on your porch for a garage sale, you and I both know you're not going to get $1,000 for that couch. You're probably going to get around $100, maybe even $50. So think of it that way when you're valuing your property. What will I get for this if I had a garage sale tomorrow? And that's the value that you put on your bankruptcy schedules. Now, when we're dealing with cars, however, the value of the car is determined by the Kelley Blue Book value trade-in value. So when you're trying to determine the value of your car, go to kelleybluebook.com, kbb.com, type in your car, year, model, and make, and select trade-in value, and that's going to be the value that you use for your car on your bankruptcy schedule.
Now, if you enjoyed this video, but you feel like you still have some unanswered questions, don't worry, we've got you covered. We've actually created an entire video series that answers all the commonly asked questions about bankruptcy in Utah. Go ahead on over to our website, LaytonBankruptcyLawyers.com, and there you'll be able to download our free ebook, and you'll be directed to our main website where the entire video series is located.